Well, I'm making the back of the tool cabinet at the moment, and I've got some nice little planks here of elm which I'm cleaning up. So here they are. They're actually sections I got when I was cutting some Windsor chair seats. I wanted to make the wood slightly thinner, so they're only about 1/4 of an inch or so thick, but really for a back panel that's very nice, and the grain is great. They're a bit, as you can see, a little bit dodgy in places, but that's life. That's what you work with natural materials. But to me, that adds some of the fun. I mean, look at the graining there. That's just wonderful. So anyway, cleaning them up, I'll then set them into the oak frames, and that will be the back made up. Probably just worth saying a little bit about some of the planes I enjoy using. And I've got my old trusty Stanley number 4 here, which I do quite a lot of green woodworking, as you know, so this is actually very nice for that. It's not too expensive a plane to buy, works really very well, and I've had this since I was probably about 12 years old, so it's getting on a bit now. But I do have, for finer work, I have a slightly heavier quality one. So this one has a thicker blade, and also the blade has been put into a bed that's been ground, and it's a far heavier piece of plane, so it does do a better job, it has to be said. This one's made by Quansheng, which is a Japanese company, and they're not too expensive actually, and not for what they are. They're certainly pretty good overall. And then block plane wise, I have a little adjustable mouth, again it's Stanley, a little 9.5 block plane there, which I've had for so many years. I've actually had to buy a new blade for it because I ground the last one down. Constant old stoning and what have you. But anyway, that's quite nice again for the slightly rougher work. And then for the finer work, I've got a little block rebate plane, which again is thicker blade, ground in bed, and these are about £50 roughly, Quansheng. Again, very nice quality for what you're getting. They are stunning value. The elm has quite a sort of rough, well, it's got a rough wavy grain, but it's also quite a sort of not terribly smooth in places, so you do need to smooth it down, and the planes are great for this. This board, we can see by its waviness here, it is actually quite uneven, so the smaller plane in many ways is good because it gets down lower. I also like using the block plane because you can actually move it to where the grain goes, which on something like elm, where your grain's going all over the place, is pretty good actually. I've recently put one of these little recessed bench dogs into my bench surface, and I find that really useful because I've got a dog on the vise as well, and it's good for just clamping boards and keeping them firm. Well, I've just been cutting out the framing and just going to plane it up now. One of the things I find quite useful is I've got 2 benches here side by side with a vise in each one, and so it can hold a plank of wood in each vise, and it makes it really stable for planing down. So quite a good thing to have really. But here's my router table assembly, just a simple MDF table. Routers underneath, I'll give a close-up view in a minute. And I've got a dust extraction facility coming in here, which goes onto a dust extractor. Router bit cutter there. Very good this, because it's really quite a safe way of cutting, because you can just move the wood across and you keep your hands and your face, etc. well clear of the router, so it's quite a nice setup. I've got an on-off switch separate to the router just on the side here, which is quite useful. happened to the old-fashioned plough plane? Well, here are all the framing pieces all routed and ready now for the panels. So my next job is to hand fit the panels to make sure they're all nicely able to fit in those slots, and then I'll join the actual frame together. So once again the panels will be free floating to allow for expansion and contraction, but the actual frame itself will be glued together and jointed. So this is the overall effect I'm trying to get. So it's the elm panel now set into the oak framing, and so I'm just making sure that I'm getting a nice good fit along here. So a bit of hand finishing, but well worth the effort. Well, I'm just doing some dry fitting here, so I've put the panels into position, elm panels in the centre and then the oak frame around the outside, and I'm really just doing a first test fit to make sure that everything's going to fit all right. It is quite tricky because you've got to make sure, well, it's very accurate essentially, otherwise there'll be nasty gaps appearing, which I certainly don't want to have. So anyway, it seems to be going all right at the moment, so I'll press on. This almost seems too good for a back, all this beautiful grain everywhere. I do love just the difference of colours, textures that you get with a natural wood. It is just beautiful. Well, we got snow this morning, so I'm off to give the chickens an early morning breakfast, and then I'm going to light the fire in my workshop and assemble the back of the cabinet. Okay, the first two clamps are on, so now I'll just put the crossways clamps on. Wow, what a relief. Got the gluing done. I always find gluing like this quite stressful because with 4 panels there are a lot of joints in there, and anything slightly out of place then you don't get a panel fitting nicely and it all goes slightly awry. Anyway, it's there, it's stuck, it seems to have gone very well. I've been using these lightweight aluminium sash clamps and I find them very good. They're not as heavy duty as conventional sash clamps with either metal or wooden beam and iron heads, but they are a lot lighter to use, which is nice. There's obviously no issue of iron reacting with tannin and causing black marks on oak type timbers with lots of tannin, and they seem to clamp with a fair bit of pressure. I was surprised because I haven't used this set before and I'm actually very pleased with it. Anyway, cabinet back's done and it's got the sort of effect I was looking for with all the nice wood graining, and I'll probably be finishing the cabinet with Danish oil, a sort of mix. So that will bring the grain out really beautifully. So my next job now is to do the base and the top, and that will be another video.